The Star Wars universe is constantly expanding.
But how the heck are you going to keep tabs on it without a holocron? And where in the rim can I score the juiciest news and rumors?
You seek State of the Empire, Consequence of Sound's Star Wars speculation podcast, where we look for news in Alderaan places.
We dig into the Sarlacc pit of the internet for the hottest intel in the galaxy far, far away. Make Indiana Jones inquiries and keep watch for the latest on Willow.
Find us on consequenceofsound.net or wherever you procure fine podcasts. It's the show you're looking for. Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with, an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Hey, if you haven't already, why haven't you subscribed? Maybe it's your first time listening. That's all right. You can subscribe on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, or really wherever you get your favorite podcasts from. We put out interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Consequence of Sound. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today my guest is Brad Shultz of the band Cage the Elephant, a band that's from just down the road from where I am here in Louisville, a Bowling Green band. We're going to be talking about their brand new record, Social Cues, how it has its ties into dark cinema. This is their dark cinema record. That's in part due to teaming up with Beck's dad, David Campbell. Beck is also on the record. We talk about that, taking in some inspiration from another Bowling Green fella, John Carpenter, and his scores, their plans for actually making a longer movie themselves, and how it's lyrically rooted in a very dark time in lead singer Matt Shultz's life, going through a divorce. But as Brad assures us, it's definitely relatable to everyone. Kyle Meredith with Cage the Elephant.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Hey, dude, congratulations on this new record, Social Cues. It's great to have you guys back. This sounds fantastic, man.
Oh, man, thank you so much. It's a long process. We actually started the process for that record and demoing in October of 2017.
Wow.
And so it's good to see it kind of come to fruition, and now we're done. We can start the touring, and it's good to see people connecting with the songs that have been out right now.
And that tour, by the way, I'll point that out. You've got a hell of a tour lineup on the way with you all, Cage the Elephant, and Beck and Spoon, and some fantastic openers from there. That's a monster lineup.
You know, we wanted to come out of the gates with a fun, exciting tour for us and for people. And so, since we had the song with Beck, that idea was thrown around. And we're just blessed that he's been so cool and willing to, do this tour. And then to get Spoon on board just added another level of excitement. And then, like you said, the three bands that we added as the first on, that being Wild Bell, Sunflower Bean, and Starcrawler, I almost feel like we were able to put together a mini festival in some sort.
Yeah, no, that's what it feels like. That's what it definitely feels like. It was kind of a little mind-blowing moment when that announcement came across. And, so you got Beck on the record, and he's on that song Night Running, which is also the name of that tour. For this record on Social Cues, you also worked with his dad, right, David Campbell?
Yeah, we did. And before we got with Beck to do Night Running, we had David Campbell on, because we want, on the back of doing Unpeeled, we really wanted to add that dynamic to this record in some sense, the string section, and also it kind of tied in with ideas that we really wanted this record to be more cinematic. And David Campbell was really on the top of our list for the string arrangements, and so we had actually started that process before we recorded Night Running with Beck. And it's just crazy how everything works out. You always hear the old cliche, like, oh, it was just meant to be. Like in this case, it was like more of a physical representation of it was meant to be than I've ever experienced in, making any other record.
Well, with him, you do get that cinematic touch, this being sort of, I guess we would call it a dark cinema record if I had to, throw it even further down that, at least what it sounds to me. And I guess that all ties into some other composers, which, has a local connection with John Carpenter as well. Is that what I read that right?
That was really what we were digging into on this record, was like horror film music and horror films, and we wanted this record to carry that sort of sentiment in a certain way. And John Carpenter is actually from Bowling Green, and he when he was a teenager, he actually dated our bass player's mother. It was such an odd thing, but he was definitely a huge influence on this record and just horror films in general.
Were you guys watching a lot of them while doing the record? I mean, were you trying to look at specific ones to kind of pull ideas from?
We've always been a very visual band, and in our approach of where we take inspiration from. And so, yes, that, and we were also watching, like, during the song House of Glass, me and Matt were really enamored by this television show on Netflix called I Am a Murderer, or I Am a Killer.
Right.
And it interviews people on death row, and you kind of go through their whole life of, like, you really have a lot of compassion and you feel really bad for them in the first of every episode, because it goes through their life and how they were raised and how they were kind of products of their environment, each and every one of them. But then you see how they turned, and there's people that go through those certain things that don't succumb to what they did. And so during House of Glass, we were watching that, and there was all kinds of different stuff that we were pulling from in that time period, though.
I mean, to be such a cinematic band, in the past, and especially now with this, and with the music videos sort of taking, life onto mini movies in themselves, do you ever want to take that further? Would you ever want to actually do a film, something longer?
We actually had an idea around this record. We just didn't have the time to. So maybe maybe we'll do that down the road. But we did have an idea around this character called the Broken Boy, and we just didn't have the time to pull it together. Honestly, I wish I had a better story than that, but that's the truth.
No, it's all right. I mean, just the title alone, that sounds creepy enough, The Broken Boy. I don't know if it's meant to sound creepy, but it definitely does. And from what I've read, how this ties in, with Matt especially writing about these type of characters, as almost a concept record, but it does have roots in the stuff that he was going through in his personal life with the divorce. And I don't know if this is rooted lyrically in kind of being a breakup record. Do you still relate to it because of the way it's turned around?
Yeah, I mean, I think, everybody's gone through breakups. And everyone, even if you haven't gone through a breakup for some odd reason, you've went through depression, and you have experienced low times in your life. And I think that with Matt and his approach to his lyrical content is that he wants to be as honest as he possibly can about his experiences. And I think that if you are very honest and brutally honest with yourself and brutally honest about the truth of what you're going through, negative and positively, I think people will connect to that, because as much as we all as a society want to convince ourselves that we're each and everyone's this like special, unique flower, we all experience the same things, and we all want at the basics of life, we all want the same things as well. We want happiness, and we want to be loved, and we want to be accepted. And so I think in that, realm of thinking, I think everything that Matt talks about is super relatable.
Well, I love what I've heard from this. Brad, congratulations. It is great to have Cage the Elephant back, and Social Cues. I mean, it's another great one from you all. So, appreciate it.
Oh, man, thank you so much.
All right, it's a pleasure talking to you.
You all been on the ground level for us, so it's good to talk to somebody from the like I say, the motherland.
I'm excited to have you guys back over here whenever you're dropping by again.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
And a big thanks to Brad Shultz of Cage the Elephant. The new record is called Social Cues. Actually caught up with Brad Shultz just a couple years ago when they were about to release the Unpeeled live album. Thought we'd include that one on here as well as a lead-in. Part 2 of Kyle Meredith with Cage the Elephant. First off, I think we're just talking about Unpeeled. That's been the new record that's been announced. Like, there's a concept here. There's a story here. You wanna lay that out?
Well, I guess the concept is a stripped-back record that has, we had like a quartet, string quartet. We had a choir, We actually recorded most of it live, but we did do studio stuff as well. So
Yeah, when I listened to it, like, because somebody had said that, press release, it's a live record, but it doesn't sound like a live record. It sounds like a studio record.
Yeah, that's what our whole objective was. That exactly. We just wanted to do it live and capture the live vibe and the energy that's exchanged between us and the crowd, but also have it sound a little more direct and like a studio record.
Mm-hmm. Did that come from the last record? Because that was sort of the note about that last record, but it was more stripped back than you guys had ever tried before.
I don't think it necessarily came from the idea of Tell Me I'm Pretty. I think it came, we did this Neil Young benefit, the Bridge School benefit. And as we were practicing for that, we just were having a great time stripping everything back and finding parts with different instruments to kind of take place of some of the effects and that sort of thing. And it just became really fun and evident that we should do more of that. Yeah. And then we played the Neil Young show. It went off really well, and we had a great time doing that and kind of decided to do a whole tour that way. And then that evolved into a record, and I don't know, and so on. And now
here we are talking to each other. Did any of the songs get a major overhaul? I mean, like right now, of course, I've heard the two that are out, but were you guys able to look at, because it's kind of a chance for some of the songs to get a second chance?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was our whole idea, is to re-envision every song and kind of take a new approach. There's some songs that stay a little closer to what the songs were originally, but a lot of them drift off and kind of take their own form.
Because I seeing like Sweetie Little Jean come out now as a single. It never had the chance to shine like this, but suddenly I get to hear the song, in this more focused sort of way, and it's
we're actually really, that was a song that we were extra happy with. The way it turned out.
Yeah, about the covers too, because the first thing we hear is Reckless Eric, which Whole Wide World, one of the great songs. That's not exactly a popular song. Golden Brown is the same way, Like, how do you pick them? And I'll say that the nice thing about that is you are doing a service of introducing these songs to a whole generation who probably never knew them.
I mean, there's both songs that we were just in love with as a band and just from even our younger days. And I've always wanted, like, my younger brother is in a band, and I was trying to get him to cover Reckless Eric. And that song, and I kept on trying to convince him to cover it, and he was like, I love the song, I want to do it, but he just never did it. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take my own advice and cover that song.
Did you ever see when Will Ferrell did it in Stranger Than Fiction?
Yeah.
It's a great scene.
That was the first time I'd ever heard the song.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly didn't know the Reckless Eric version, but I didn't know that they were the same thing.
Right.
I didn't discover this song. I heard that version, and then a year later heard Reckless Eric one. I was like, oh man, that song's awesome. And they're like, yeah, remember that part when the Will Ferrell sang it? I was like, what?
Yeah. It all turns around. That's how I got around to Golden Brown, because that was Snatch for me.
Oh yeah,
Snatch. It was in that movie. Yeah. It was just the coolest. It sounds like a difficult song to me.
It is a little bit complicated, but it's really not if you break it down from piece to piece as far as instrumentation. But when it all comes together, it sounds like it is, because right. You're all kind of doing drastically different things. Yeah. But yeah, Stranglers. The cool thing about that song too is that that's kind of one of the songs of theirs that only sounds like that. A lot of their other stuff sounds.
See, I've never listened to their other stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay, it's a little bit more angular punk kind of.
Well, it was funny watching you guys, looking back now at this tour that these were recorded on and everything, because these are quieter shows, I guess. You have the orchestra there, the acoustics, and everybody's seated, except your lead man, who can't find a seat.
We take it away every night. The reason he dances around is because he's just really mad.
Really? In a very acoustic sort of way.
Yeah.
And I also thought it laid out nicely, because it's kind of your first attempt, maybe unintentionally, the greatest hits. I don't know if you guys thought of it like that, but
well, I guess it does have all the songs on it. So yeah. I don't know if we were warranted a greatest hits record yet, but
you got a lot of hits.
Well,
you see the way people react to them.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's happening.
Now we're excited about it.
Are you looking ahead? It's because the album now, it's you guys have been done with it for a while. That's always the wrap up question, isn't it? Are you looking ahead?
Always.
Yeah.
Never looking behind. No, we actually write throughout the year of 2 years now that we've been touring on this. So we, from the time that we stopped recording Tell Me I'm Pretty, we kind of continued to just store ideas on our iPhones and such, and I feel really, really cool about where we're going with because we always change it up from album to album.
And it's always a surprise.
Yeah, we like that, and not that we necessarily do that, but I think you have to imitate, your art has to imitate your life, and your life is constantly changing, and so if you let your music do that, it's going to be different, and it's exciting to us. So.
Well, the one compliment I'll give you here at the end about that is you find a band that you like, and it's usually on that first or second record for most bands, and you grab onto that, and you make your memories with that, and then the band goes on, and by the time they're on their fifth record, you're like, I wish I liked them as much, but I can honestly say that you are one of the few bands that I can name that it's here you are on what album number is this? And this is probably my favorite record that you guys have done.
Oh, the
not the
Unpeeled, or
no,
Tell Me I'm Pretty is our fourth record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know. I think we started out with not a lot, like a lot of references to pull from, and we didn't have a vast knowledge of music and underground music. We just, we loved the Rolling Stones, we loved Beck, we loved the Beatles, and we always wanted to write pop songs in the vein of how the Beatles could mix cool and pop together. Not that we ever would achieve that, you know what I'm saying? But why not strive for that, right. And I think just recently, not recently, but, within the last 5 to 7 years, we were able to kind of put together all the dots and really achieve what we were going for on at least Melophobia and Tell Me I'm Pretty. The other two records I think I appreciate for being a snapshot in time of where we really were. It was true songs to us, but they're not as, I don't know, maybe not as thought out, and maybe some of that is a good thing, and maybe some of that isn't.
It's like looking back at the yearbooks photos,
yeah, exactly,
right? That's
exactly.
just what it always is.
Sometimes you wear a cool shirt, but your haircut sucks.
All right, Brad, thank you so much. That's
all
what
right,
I got,
thanks, man.
It's great talking.
And why not one more Cage the Elephant interview? Back when they played the KFC Yum Center here in Louisville, I got to catch up with Matthew Shultz behind the record Melophobia. It's part 3 of Kyle Meredith with Cage the Elephant.
I am sitting here with Matt Shultz of Cage the Elephant. Sir.
Oh, that's me.
That's
Hi.
you. Welcome to the interview.
How's it going?
And welcome kind of back home. I mean, this
Yes.
is a Kentucky show. We were just talking before the interview here.
Mm-hmm.
You said this is like the first time you've played Kentucky. You're on tour with the Black Keys right now since, I don't know, a little tiny club in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
It's the first time we've played here since we released Melophobia back in October last year, and that was just kind of like a secret show that we did at Tidball's, which Tidball's is a bar in Bowling Green where we played our first ever Cage the Elephant concert, and we always go back there.
It's gotta be insane. It's a Tidball. You play on the floor there, right? That's
essentially.
Yeah, right.
It's this crazy, super high, 4-inch elevated stage.
It's different than the stadium shows. Yeah.
But they have this really cool chain that's across the ceiling, and I always hang upside down. No.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
No, I love Tidball's. It's one of those venues that that's not known necessarily for the extraordinary sound, but more the atmosphere.
It's like the rented PAs on the
yeah,
side.
totally, absolutely.
It's cool though. The great thing about your story, and there's been plenty talked about, coming from the small town Kentucky and everything, is like everything you have against you when you're from a small town anywhere, to have risen to where you guys have, like it's crazy. Did it ever feel like? I mean, I know you guys had to escape, essentially, to kind of make it, and I guess that's what happened. But it ever seemed like, man, we really do. We have just got to get as far away from our past if we're ever going to make this happen.
I think you have shades of that in every single day. But there were a lot of hurdles to get over. Being from a small town, first off, to get out where. To get exposure and get in front of people and people who could help. So we would drive down to Nashville every weekend and play at like 12th and Porter or 3rd and Lindsley. There was this place called Windows Over the Cumberland we used to play.
Yeah.
We'd drive up here and play at, what was that place? The Tavern, maybe?
Up here?
Yeah, is that here or?
I know there's a...
What was there was a place that we used to play here a lot. We'd also play in Lexington. I swear there's this place that has this massive ceiling fan here in Louisville.
I don't think I know it.
Phoenix Hill, there we go. So we used to play there all the time.
Phoenix Hill.
Phoenix Hill.
We've all done our dues at Phoenix Hill.
So we would do like 3 shows a weekend, and once we got out of Bowling Green, we moved to England, and it was something that was always like this, like this chip on our shoulder that was kind of hurled on us. That, you know, I mean,
that's your origin story, and it suddenly becomes very sexy to the media.
Well, kind of, but then they betray you. You know, then it's like, oh, these are hicks from Kentucky.
Right.
You know, and
you got to deal with that. You don't have an accent. Did you ever was that ever called like, oh man? Especially when you're
if
over.
we're from Kentucky, we all have accents.
Yeah, right. I don't hear it. Yeah, right. But I can imagine over in Europe and everything. It's like, you know.
Well, you know, I mean, they just quickly tried to paint us as this dumb party band, and over the years, you just have to continue to follow through and do what you do, and hopefully, people will see more, that there's more to the story than just your place of origin, or maybe they can see past. You know, some people want to believe that where you're from dictates your intelligence level, which is hilarious. You know, I thought that was dictated by, you know, genetics.
But every place has their stereotypes.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, so that was something to get over, and honestly, and it was funny because it did become a chip on our shoulder for years, and it was something that, for some reason in my youth, I was a bit ashamed of, but, you know, as the years have passed by, I mean, Kentucky is one of the fondest places in my memory. I love Kentucky. Every time, it's so weird. As soon as we got here today, I finished a lyric in a song that I've been searching for so long, and it's just like, I think it has something to do with the humility that's here and just the humble nature. And so that I don't feel like this need to boost up my ego, so I can really be in touch with like honesty and transparency. Yeah. So I love Kentucky.
I find that interesting with a lot of people, though. I mean, you said it earlier. You kind of shun your past.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's not so much that you have to come back; it's that you just give in.
The people are great here. It's like some of the most gorgeous landscape in the country. You know, there's a lot of great artists that have come out of Kentucky. My Morning Jacket.
Sure. Bonnie Prince Billy right here in town.
Yeah, totally.
And Cage the Elephant.
Cage the Elephant. Morning Teleportation, Sleeper Agent. There's been a lot of great bands. So.
And it makes it kind of a homecoming show for you guys. Do you have family that's going to be here?
Oh yeah, my dad is driving up. My little brother's going to be here. I know that several of the band members have family.
See, there's that whole backstory of yours about how rock music was shunned in your household, but now they show up. Like, are they all supportive?
Well, it wasn't.
Did they listen? Oh, did that get blown out?
That was an over dramatized version of the story.
Yeah.
Which
is a good story if it was true.
Yeah. Well, basically, my dad was just trying to be a good parent and
Sure.
keep his young children away from heavily drug-influenced music.
But now you're playing the. At least
totally,
it sounds heavily drug-influenced.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's and he's a huge supporter. When I quit the football team and started a band, he was the first one to be like cheering me on.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So it wasn't the whole, forehead smack and what have I done wrong?
No.
Where have I gone wrong with my sons?
No, quite the opposite.
The new record, Melophobia, I guess it's a year old now. Report card time. This was supposed to be the album that you guys stretched out on. This is supposed to be the album that you found your identity. As once again the press release would say and everything. The album that you wanted to stop.
That's what
being
they always say.
Yeah, the album that you wanted to stop being compared to everybody else. I mean, you're a year, and it usually does take a bit of time for perspective. I mean, how's it? Has it changed any? Have you been looking at it, going, we hit it or missed it by that much, or?
You know, I think you can always find different areas to grow in. I think that we definitely made a more transparent record than the last and than anything we've ever done. I feel like we've really worked on our communication skills. You know, music and any art at its barest form is communication. Mm-hmm. You know, I think art for art's sake sucks. Sure. You know, like if you are an artiste, you probably are more into fashion and trends. Yeah. You know, so I definitely feel like we made some really great discoveries on this record that I hope to continue to apply to the creative process. I don't know if we found our voice. Yeah. I think we definitely found a method and, or not even necessarily a method or a formula, but I think we discovered some elements that are very important to unlocking creativity. And so hopefully in the future we can continue to do those things.
Yeah, I guess that's what's interesting, because a band comes out and that's the band, that's their sound and everything. And to hear a band coming out of record 3, going into record 4, saying, no, we're still trying to figure out who we are. And it is hard. I mean, that's always been your thing, you know. Explain Cage the Elephant. What do they sound like? Well, I don't know, they're a rock band.
I always tell people, and easiest said, it's in the rock and roll
right,
world.
Yeah, but to actually hear you guys saying, it's like, oh, you know, we're still trying to figure that out ourselves. Like, that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that we're in a time where there's so much collective culture and knowledge that it's hard to pinpoint something. I mean, you know, rock and roll means so many different things to so many different people. So, but we just want to make music that inspires us and that says something and that holds some of the nuances of the music that we love from the past, and also, you know, hopefully is stretching out and searching for new things to add to it. And
do you ever get worried about, you know, with fan expectations, the way they come around, like, you know, fans hardcore fall in love with the band, and you guys have a very big fan base at this point. And the more you kind of experiment, there's always that chance that you're going to go in a direction that they're not going to be up for. And that's what, I mean, there are bands historically that have been fined, like they purposefully have changed their sound because they didn't want certain fans, like, you know, or whatever it was, you know, like the old stories about Pearl Jam not wanting the meatheads, you know, or something like that, you know. But as you guys are kind of fiddling around, like that's possible. You know, you go this way, and they're like, nah, I can't go there.
I think what we're trying to do is shed that kind of writing, though. We don't want image projecting based creativity. We just don't want to, like, you know, make music to be perceived as intellectual or to be perceived as poetic or even, you know, accessible or whatever. Hopefully the thing that our fans are getting into is just an openness to change and growth, and, you know, we try to write music that we're into at that time or whatever's happening, and yes, there's always a fear where you're like, have we gone too far this time? But, you know, in a weird way, I think it's become kind of a bit expected that it might be a little unexpected.
Sure.
You know,
you guys have pulled that off.
Just try to write good songs that connect with people and great hooks. That's one thing that I always admired about David Bowie is, you know, I mean, he's several different shades of gray, you know, like, or whatever color you want to, you know. I mean, he's just all over the place in his style, and but he always wrote fantastic songs.
And each album completely different from the last.
Totally, with incredible choruses, wildly imaginative lyrics, and hopefully we can kind of do the same. So.
It's funny how many interviews we've done over the past few years where David Bowie is the ultimate touchstone. If you want to be a great rock and roller, which, you know, and I don't know, because at one point you can say artist, but there's something about the theatrics he puts into it, you know, because it's thinking beyond more than just, I have to go out there and strum this guitar for a crowd, you know, it becomes a whole big picture, but it's really interesting. But I have noticed, like, the sea change over the past few years, you know, 15, 20 years ago, you know, a band, once they were a sound, they were really afraid to get out, but I do see more and more bands, it's like, we don't really have to be defined by sound anymore. It is starting to change. So
I hope that catches on. I mean, that was one of the great things about the 60s and the 70s, and it's probably one of the reasons why we as a civilization have become so hung up on the 60s and 70s, because you can't pin it down. You know, all your favorite bands, you were like waiting to hear what their next record was like.
Right.
You wanted, like, I didn't live in the 60s and 70s, but I can imagine.
But we all know about it, right?
But it's kind of like, you know, you want to get the record and you want to see how the band has changed. Even the pictures, it's like, oh my gosh, John Lennon grew his hair out.
And think that's like in 6-month periods.
Totally,
too,
yeah, that's
one
the
to the
craziest
other.
thing.
Like,
yeah.
I would kind of like to see that come back, you know? Maybe less touring, more albums. That's coming as a fan. As an artist, that's got to be...
No, that'd be incredible.
Yeah.
I think that would be great.
Like, you guys would already be releasing that next record probably a month ago.
Yeah,
you know?
well, I'm right there with you. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
We're working on a new record, and
which is kind of fast. I mean, that's a quick turnaround for you guys to already be kind of messing around.
Well, it was weird because usually I can kind of predict when creativity is going to start creeping in, and or at least a resurgence of creativity, you know. But this time, it just started happening, and it was like, wow, that's cool. And I kept on being like, it's not happening yet, you know, trying to disregard it. But a lot of ideas have come in, and hopefully there's still a long way to go, a lot of growth to happen and new discoveries, but pretty excited.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens next on this one.
Yeah,
LP4 right around the corner.
Yeah, totally.
And then LP5 right around the corner.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah,
dude,
totally.
It's been really fun to catch up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations, and we'll see you down the road.
Thank you.
All right.
The new record is called Social Cues. If you haven't already, please do take that moment to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening from right now. And again, whether that's on YouTube or Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts from. After that, you can head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you can also find some bonus episodes of this series. ConsequenceOfSound.net has all your music and film news needs. You can find me at Twitter at Kyle Meredith and Facebook/Kyle Meredith. That does it for another edition of Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.